I finally decided I'm going to learn to fly for real. I thought I'd do a series of videos where I can look at that experience of learning to fly, but also how the experience of flying the aircraft compares with the experience of flying in the simulator. So the first thing is to pick a club. I've picked the club and I've joined the club, and you really need to look at the way the club charges for flight hours. It can really add up in some clubs the way they charge in terms of real elapsed time. The club I've joined, they simply charge for the time in the air, 10 minutes before in the aircraft to prepare, and 5 minutes after on the ground. And that's regardless of how much time you actually spend preparing and doing the checks, which is going to be longer initially, and how much time you spend on the ground in the debrief. The lesson beforehand, so the briefing and the debrief, are effectively free. You only pay for the time, as I say, in the aircraft and in the air, which I think is great value. There are some additional on costs, so you'll need to buy headphones and books and charts and what have you, and I'll do a separate video on that. This video is around my trial flight. I went along for a flight just to test out the aircraft to see if I could would enjoy the flying. It was quite a windy day. It was the first time I've flown in any sort of unsettled weather, and so it was a good test to see if I would actually be able to cope with that and how much enjoyment I would get out of the flight. I have to say it was absolutely fantastic. The instructor was really, really great. The club is really, really friendly, and I am hooked. So here's a little bit about the trial flight, a little bit about how that compared with the simulator, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so you can see here that I had some rather fetching pink headphones, which is one of the main drivers to buy my own headphones, which is one of the first things that I bought, as you'll see in a subsequent video. We flew out from Harden in Wales out towards the coast. I was allowed to fly most of the time. It was a bit too windy for me to take off, and there are a couple of occasions when my instructor showed me some particular techniques as to how to avoid collisions, for example, and how to control the aircraft. There were a few things that I needed to remember from the simulator not to do. So the first thing is I was allowed to taxi out. Taxiing cannot be replicated in the simulator. Pedals are much harder to press, there's much more movement, and it simply is nothing like the real plane. So that's one of the biggest changes. Second thing is that I noticed that you're encouraged not to look at the instruments when you're flying an aircraft. So the key is to have sort of 4 fingers between the dashboard and the horizon, and really look outside the aircraft more than you look inside the aircraft. And that's for 2 reasons. The main reason is that in an uncontrolled airspace, you need to weave and look for aircraft at all times, so you need to have your wits about you and then check in on your instruments periodically. And the second thing is that as you're flying, as my instructor was impressing on me, you need to get a feel for the aircraft. You know, it's going up or down, it's going right or left, and you cannot do that reliably if you're simply focused on the instruments. So this was really just a session where I could get a feel for the aircraft, where I could get a feel for flying. Again, there was some conversation at the beginning around bringing it in for landing. I did actually move it towards the runway, but the instructor took over because it was a crosswind landing and it was quite a strong wind. So there is a little bit in the video, as you'll see here, about the landing. It was fine, I really enjoyed it, but it was quite bump. Okay, that's all I've got for you today. If you liked it, please like it. If you want more of these videos, please feel to subscribe. Leave any comments, anything that you want me to do any videos on in the future, and I'll catch you next time. Everybody there is really, really friendly, and oh,